March 23rd, 2011 meeting of the Environment and Public Works Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Barker? Here. Mr. Beebe? Here. Chairman Cassetti?
Here.
Mr. Colby? Here. Mr. Haney? Mr. Hyder? Here. Mr. Howland? Here.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There's not.
Is there anyone present who's not signed up to speak who would like to speak at this time? Come forward, Mr. Gregory. Just be sure to give your name and address.
I'm just going to be really quick on this first item here. It's not really to the topic, but you know, we have a community hospital, and we're always looking for ways of funding that hospital. We're always looking for ways of funding and helping us fund the county. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I wrote some letters around the governmental, people in government, and talked about the idea of looking as developing a working relationship with one of the local hospitals. At the time, it was suggested a strong hospital because of locality be there. There's an entirely different kind of medicine dealing with people like myself. I would be one of your poverty people who would probably end up there someday, and dealing with people who can generally pay the bill. And literally, the idea was simply this here, and this is a way for government to get another funding source. Why don't we partner with Strong or one of the major hospitals, look for a way to help us fund that hospital, and the quid pro quo being that through that hospital, we train interns and medical professionals to deal with people like me. It's just an idea. I see you're going to be upgrading this thing, and it's going to cost us money, but by golly gosh, if we could find another source to help fund it, that might be an idea, and through you to the administration. Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the February 16, 2011 minutes of the Environment and Public Works Committee before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. The next item on the agenda is new business, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-64.
Moved by Legislator Colby, seconded by Vice President Barker. Any discussion? Legislator Hyder.
Thank you, Chairman Cassetti. And through you to the administration, a couple of questions about this referral. How many consultants were considered for this project?
Through the chair, Jason Kennedy with Environmental Services. 4 firms were considered.
Okay, thank you. And how did we arrive, through you, Mr. Chair, at the $80,000 for the first year cost? Can you break that down for us?
Through the chair, the prior 5-year contract was limited to $60,000 annually based on usage over that period and anticipated usage going forward. We felt it prudent to increase the authorized limit to a not to exceed of $80,000.
Okay, and through you, Mr. Chair, that if we do exceed that $80,000, you'd have to come back before the legislature?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
Legislator Colby.
Just to follow up on that through you, Mr. Chairman, you said the last contract of this one was maxed out at 60. Just because it's 80,000, do you anticipate at least the first couple of years not using it all? It all depends on the workload. Is that not correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's an authorized not to exceed limit, but it doesn't require that we spend all of it.
We have, I think, 4 or 5 of these referrals. They're all kind of alike here tonight. Typically, what percentage of the monies do you use of those type referrals? I mean, are you using 75% of them on a yearly basis, or are you using them all the time?
Through the chair, it does depend on the particular term contract. In this case, we have used, in large part, the maximum authorization annually for the hospital MEP contract.
Just the reason we're doing these, through you, Mr. Chairman, the reason we do these type contracts is the way to get engineers, specific engineers, without hiring a lot of different engineers and having them on staff. So you kind of pick and choose the engineers as you need them for cost savings. Is that a fair analysis?
Through the chair, yes, these contracts tend to be for smaller scale projects and for projects that come up maybe on a more urgent or emergency basis. So unlike our selections for our larger discrete capital projects, to your point, yes, we have a professional on under contract that we can draw from, on a moment's notice as need be.
Okay. Legislator Haney, do you have a question? Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we've got 4 of these on the agenda. What does the phrase term services mean?
Through the chair, term services means that the professional services are term limited. We select them for an initial 1-year annual term, and then we have 4 allowable annual renewals. So effectively, we're referring to the annual term limit placed upon the contract.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, if we look at all 4 of the referrals, which are all very similar, to follow up on Mr. Heider's question about how they were selected, it looks like it was Christmas and March for engineering firms. I mean, we've got M&E Engineering, Barton and the Judas, Clow Harbor, Labella, DJ Perone and Associates, T.Y. Lynn, Barton and Judas pops up twice. I mean, was for the work of each contract, was there really a discretionary selection process? I mean, it looks like we're giving a contract to every architectural and to every professional engineering firm in town.
Through the chair, to the question regarding the independent selection, yes, there was an individual selection for each contract.
So it's, through you, Mr. Chairman, it's just coincidental that practically everybody in town is popping up here?
Through the chair, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, it looks like virtually every professional engineering firm in town is getting a contract. Is it?
Yes, Vice President Parker, go ahead.
Everyone in town? Does Mr. Haney know how many there are in town? And does that qualify for every? Come on.
Yeah, we
Let's
shouldn't
move
really
on.
be editorializing here.
Well, let me rephrase the question. Are there professional engineering firms in town that we're not contracting with?
Through the chair, yes.
Legislator Haney, you have any further questions? Okay. Do you have a question, Legislator Grady? Okay, Legislator Howland.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question. I know on our larger projects where we select an engineer, we have an evaluation process where we actually grade the engineers and decide who we'd like to have do the work for us. Is this true also for smaller contracts such as this?
Through the chair, yes, it is.
Okay, so we're not giving these contracts away willy-nilly. And since we issue engineering contracts, state law states that we don't have to bid them out because they're a professional contract. It probably behooves us to keep several of our engineering firms in the city competitive and interested in this work so we get better prices.
Through the chair, we use a selection-based, qualifications-based selection. To your earlier point, when we do, I think one of the criteria of the 11 selection criteria is location of headquarters rather of the firm.
Through the chair, but what I believe my point was is if we gave all this engineering work to one firm, chances are we wouldn't have the number of engineers 2-3 years from now to select from to do the work that we want to have done. that's just a comment. It really doesn't need an answer.
Any further questions? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-65,
Moved by
authorized contract.
legislator Howland, seconded by legislator Barker. Did you want to second that one too, legislator Hyder? No, I just get ready for questions. Okay. Any discussion? Go ahead, legislator Hyder.
Thank you. I guess getting back to Mr. Haney's, legislator Haney's point, through you, Mr. Chair, it seems like, so there's a number of engineering firms and architectural firms here. Is this typical for us that we will have, you know, 1 or 4 or 5 on retainer per se, historically?
Through the chair, yes, depending on the nature of the services selected, it isn't atypical that we have more than one firm. In this particular case, prior contract, there was 2 firms.
Okay. And through you, Mr. Chair, so the real design of this particular referral and this allotment of $150,000 on an annual basis is for small projects. Can you just elaborate on that, like why we would, you know, choose Labella for one or you know, someone else for another? Just explain that to us so we can better understand how some might specialize in particular things.
Through the chair, certainly each of the respective consultants, you know, brings a particular expertise and a quals-based selected expertise to the table. In the case of the general AE term services, the types of projects that we have done in the past include, you know, court security, architectural improvements, some work at the zoo, building code or ADA requirements at various parks and county facilities. Replacement of signage, design of small renovation projects in particular, you know, wall partitioning, doorways, et cetera. And again, the logic behind the 4 firms is that we have that many more resources to turn to in the event that we should need any or all those services at a particular time.
Thank you. And similar to Legislator Colby before, how much have we typically spent on this item in the past?
Through the chair, again, previously the contract was allocated to 2 firms each in the amount of $50,000, not to exceed annually. And I don't have the specific numbers for the past 5 years, but I do know in a couple particular years we were spending close to the maximum authorized amount.
So we thought it was prudent at this point to triple the budget for that? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through the chair, we haven't actually tripled the budget. Previously, we had 2 contracts, each in an aggregate amount of $50,000. Now we're authorizing 4 firms for a total aggregate amount of $150,000 between the 4.
Okay. And similar as before, I guess, and this would apply to all of them, if it exceeds $150,000 through you, Mr. Chair, this legislation would have to come back before the legislature?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-66, authorize a contract with
Moved by legislator Barker, seconded by legislator Howland. Any discussion? Legislator Haney.
What type of code enforcement activities is this involved with?
Through the chair, the county is responsible for code enforcement at all its various facilities, and we have a few individuals on staff to provide those services. This contract lends professional support to those responsibilities. In terms of what kind of services we have over 400 structures between core county buildings and our various utility buildings, as well as park structures, et cetera, that we're required to do annual inspections for, as well as periodic checks for access, code access, ADA compliance, et cetera. So those are the types of things that we solicit the services of this consultant to assist us with.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, is this fire code or building code or both or more? Or?
Through the chair, it's New York State Building Code. It does encompass fire, life safety, ADA compliance.
And we don't have people on, I mean, with 400 structures, I would think we'd have people on staff that could do this kind of stuff. We don't?
Through the chair, as I previously stated, we do in fact have a individual with the title Building Code Officer on staff and a couple other folks as well that support those activities.
Then, through you, Mr. Chairman, what does T.Y. Lin do? Is that?
Through the chair, not unlike a lot of our engineering and architectural services, wherein as the county has in years past had a much larger, robust staff, we outsource assistance from our consultant community on projects for project design, project delivery, et cetera. The engineering group, in large part, is a project management entity. Coordinating and managing those services. The code enforcement is much the same, where we have a building code officer and a couple other folks designated to those responsibilities, but there are situations that arise where we need and employ the services of an actual consultant.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, this is being driven by cutback in staff over the years, and I mean, we used to have an engineering department and that, like, but I guess that's all gone.
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any recent cutbacks per se. We've had this contract for a previous 5-year term, and we did determine that it would be appropriate to continue it based on workload and a need for assistance.
Okay. And finally, through the chair, I'm unfamiliar with the name T.Y. Lin. Is that a new name for an old outfit, or is this a new outfit? Or?
Through the chair, yes, actually it was FRA Engineers was acquired by T.Y. Lin, and that occurred a while ago, and this is just the phasing out of the FRA nameplate in favor of the T.Y. Lin.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-67, authorize a
Moved by
contract.
legislator Howland, seconded by legislator Colby. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-68, acceptance of an
Moved by
environmental.
legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Howland. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-69, acceptance of an
Moved by
environmental.
legislator Barker, seconded by legislator Colby. Any discussion? Legislator Colby.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I guess it's more of a comment than asking a question. I was pleased to see that we're using in-house firms, Soil and Water, and what's the other one here? The museum staff instead of going out to a private firm. I appreciate you guys using a non-for-profits when you can.
I believe, yes, legislator Haney.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, what exactly is going to be done with this money? What kind of projects are we doing?
Through the chair, Justin Roy with Environmental Services. There is 8 projects total, and I can walk through those projects for you if you like. The first project is Western Town Hall Rain Garden and Bioswale. And in the town of Arundecoit, there will be porous parking lots at the community center at Pine Grove. The village of Pittsford, the Village Hall parking lot would be porous pavement as well. In the town of Brighton, at the 12 Corners School campus, there's a Buckland Creek Urban Stream Restoration Project. In the Perryton Town Hall Community Center, there's a rain garden and bioswale project. In the village of Fairport, the Village Hall parking lots will be a porous asphalt project along with some bioswales. In the town of Brighton, the Monroe Ave tree lawn biofilter project. And the city of Rochester at Turning Point Trailhead parking lot rain garden as well.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Legislator Hyder.
Just a quick question for you. Can you tell me what the Monroe Ave tree lawn biofilter project actually is?
Yes, I can through the chair. The Monroe Ave corridor, basically from the center of downtown to the eastern suburbs, we've got the older production here is going to include a 300-foot section of pavement located between the roadway and sidewalk. Will be replaced with a vegetated biofilter. In essence, that's a series of plantings and what have you that helps capture rainwater so it doesn't run off into the storm sewers, and basically, right, planting trees and other plants to capture the rainwater as opposed to it reaching the sewer system is the simple way of saying it. You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-70, acceptance of a grant from the New
Moved
York.
by Legislator Howland, seconded by Legislator Colby. Any discussion? Legislator Beebe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the administration, just one question. I see this is the first year for this grant, which is commendable, anytime we can get that kind of funding. But also, I'd like to know, is there any tentative plans of where they're going to apply this funding?
Through the chair, what this program will do, it's a relatively small grant, is to help educate municipal employees when they're doing street maintenance, bridge maintenance, or working in their municipal facilities or DPW yards about how to limit stormwater runoff so that, obviously not spilling oil, being conscious of the products that you're using when you're out working in the field to ensure, again, that doesn't reach our stormwater system and then ultimately the Van Leer treatment plant.
All right, thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-71, acceptance of a grant from.
Moved by Legislator Barker, seconded by Legislator Howland. Any discussion? Legislator Hyder.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm curious, so how long will the county be able to utilize this equipment?
Through the chair, with this grant, basically this is a carrot from Health Research Incorporated, who is a contract with the state, to encourage us to begin the rapid testing program. Once we basically are trained, our staff is trained on the program, these dollars will simply pay for a seasonal aid we would currently pay for with county dollars. And in future years, we'll continue to have that seasonal aid like we've had in the past. We'll simply use this new testing procedure to provide more accurate and rapid results.
So, but in the future, through you, Mr. Chair, we'll have to come up with that $11,000 ourselves.
As we have in past years, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-72, acceptance
Moved
of
by
a grant.
Legislator Colby, seconded by Legislator Barker. Legislator Colby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much oil do you expect to be collecting in this one?
When we're fully operational, about 7,000 gallons of waste cooking oil annually.
Yeah, but that's what you can process, but how much of the facilities are using that much oil now?
When we scoped the project for the grant application, we came up with about 6948, I think, total between the various counties' facilities that are mentioned in the referral, as well as some additional facilities along that Westfall Ave, East Henrietta Road corridor.
Where is this oil going now? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Some of this oil, as we've worked on the project further, is going to Baker Commodities. We're not going to engage and take any oil that's currently being used by Baker or that these facilities may be being paid for by Baker. We may have to expand the scope of where we obtain the oil to fulfill the project. But as a point of information to the legislature, we currently receive about 1 million gallons of waste grease annually at the Van Leer treatment plant. Some of that's diluted and not usable for these sort of purposes, but the grease that is usable for these purposes, that would obviously be a very likely source for this project. We prefer to keep it closer to the fleet center and reduce the amount of fuel we have to burn to collect the oil, but we can certainly garner some of this from Van Leer if need be.
Yeah, because my understanding in Wayne County, there's a private individual that's doing this, and there's also a private individual in Erie County that's doing the same thing, not county, but they're doing it as individuals. The way I read this referral, if I'm correct, you're talking about $71,000 for RIT to train you guys and to make sure the equipment's working right. I'm assuming the other $150,000 is going to buy some equipment. Is that correct through you, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair, in the project budget, it will go to actually about 71,000 of those dollars will actually go to offset some county salaries during the course of the project. As in terms of supplies, it appears here, just eyeballing it, there's about $21,000 in supplies, and then another $48,500 in equipment.
Okay.
Legislator Hyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, congratulations on this grant. I mean, this looks pretty cool. How did this all come about, the partnership?
We've had a longstanding relationship with RIT for alternative fuel development that involves the E20 program that we currently have at our fleet. During the course of those ongoing discussions with RIT, they brought this to our attention, and we decided to pursue it as a partnership.
And they're providing this technology to others at this point as well?
One of the requirements of the grant program, and one of the things RIT is being compensated for, is to basically provide kind of a prototype, a manual, if you will, and we'll be in some educational outreach workshops to reach out to other organizations that may want to replicate the program. That was one of the strengths of the grant application the EPA identified in awarding it to Monroe County.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations again. So in that way, it's open to public use, but otherwise, it's not open to public use. This is specifically from county waste cooking oil.
Well, we at some point anticipate potentially reaching out to homeowners as maybe as a way to obtain this waste cooking oil. I mean, again, with the 1 million gallons of waste grease that we see at our Van Leer facility, there's plenty of opportunity to capture waste grease that's currently not being captured by third parties, whether individuals or businesses, and making use of that waste grease and keeping it from being either gumming up the works, if you will, at the landfill treatment plant, and then eventually being landfilled out at Millseed.
Okay. And through you, Mr. Chair, what's the timeline opening for the facility?
This will ultimately be located at our fleet center. Our hope would be to begin work around the beginning of May, bring in a co-op to start the collection of the grease and do the prototyping in RIT, and then probably I would say fall to winter time period that we would begin production in full at the fleet center.
And through you, Mr. Chair, are there any other counties in New York that are doing efforts like this?
I'm not aware of any counties that are doing it through the EPA program. There may be some efforts privately. The BioPro 190 machine has become a common biodiesel production machine.
Okay.
It's kind of the standard. I know a lot of SUNY institutions throughout the state have them as part of their environmental services programs, that sort of thing. But I'm not aware of any county fleet that's doing what we're doing today.
And how long is the grant issued? Is this a one-year grant? I don't recall. And what are the opportunities for us to go after it again?
The Climate Showcase grants are for unique projects. This one runs for about a 2-year period through the January 31st of 2013. Okay. We consistently look for opportunities to leverage grant funding to not only do unique environmentally sound projects as this, but other ways to offset county dollars.
Thank you very much.
Legislator Haney.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just out of curiosity, can biodiesel fuel be used in all diesel fuel vehicles?
My understanding is yes. On occasion, you have to worry about the level of biodiesel versus traditional diesel due to the weather like we're experiencing today. In Monroe County, obviously, biodiesel, solidifies at colder temperatures. We've had a great deal of success with B20 throughout our fleet. However, at certain times of the year, certain critical vehicles, we do run B5, which is standard diesel fuel.
So it can basically only be used in warmer weather, above 40 degrees or something?
I forget the exact point at which it begins to condense and solidify, but we find in most operational occasions in our climate even that we can use it. We just, in certain critical vehicles like the sweepers at the airport and what have you, refrain from use there, just in the instance that we would, God forbid, have a problem and not be able to make use of those vehicles in a critical time.
Right. Is it a gallon for gallon trade-off? I mean, does a gallon of the biodiesel replace a gallon of regular diesel fuel?
There is some loss as it relates to miles per gallon, but one of the things we're going to test as part of this project is again the quality of our product and what we see versus our traditionally diesel fueled vehicles, and then also try to do some cost comparisons. What does it truly cost to turn a gallon of waste grease into a gallon of biodiesel, and determine if it's cost competitive with traditionally purchased biodiesel.
Yeah, sounds like a great project.
Any further discussion? Before we vote, I think I'm going to put my 2 cents in also and share the same sentiments that Legislator Hyder has, and I'm sure my colleagues, of that the county's definitely moving in the right direction. We first saw it with the conversion of garbage and waste into energy at Millseat with a partnership with Waste Management, and now turning waste oil into fuel is another very ecologically sound and positive green initiative on the part of the county. I'm proud to be a part of it. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-73, increase and improvement.
Moved by Legislator Colby, seconded by Legislator Howland. Any discussion? Legislator Haney.
Mr. Chairman, this is $1 million project in the Rochester Pure Waters District. Was any consideration given to doing this with cash capital as opposed to borrowing the $1 million?
Through the chair, yes, there was. This is actually an amendment to an existing project, so the sum total for the project is $2 million for the electrical improvement at Frankie Van Laren. And again, yes, we certainly evaluate the use of fund balance in the district to offset capital borrowing.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, why are we not using the surplus fund balance in cash that the district has?
Through the chair, we are in fact using fund balance in our annual budgeting process, so the district is in fact using fund balance.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, do we have any estimate yet as to what the 12/31/10 fund balance and cash balance of the Rochester Pure Waters District is?
Through the chair, no, we do not have that data at this time.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, sparing the committee another oration on the virtues of cash capital, I would merely note that at the end of 2009, which is the last year for which we have numbers, the Rochester Pure Waters District had over $16 million of cash. And that's a number that's been steadily growing. It had $6.2 million of cash at the end of 2005. It had $7.7 million at the end of 2006, $11.8 million at the end of 2007, $12.6 at the end of 2008, and as I said, it leaped almost $4 million to $16.1 million at the end of 2009. That's cash. In terms of fund balance, at the end of 2009, we had $13.6 million. And despite some appropriations in the last few years for operating budget purposes, the unrestricted fund balance of the City Pure Waters District basically hasn't changed much. It was $12.2 million in 2006, $12.5 million in 2008, 13.6 at the end of 2009. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I think this would be a perfect case in which we could break some of our habit of borrowing money for everything and use $1 million of this cash and fund balance that the City Pure Waters District has accumulated, instead of adding to the borrowing of the City Pure Waters District. That would avoid, there's an estimate in the paperwork, which I don't find at the moment, of the potential increase in Pure Waters District rates that this borrowing would result in the city. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, among the 5 legislative actions, I would move that legislative action number 4, which is an authorization for borrowing of the $1 million, be replaced with an authorization to appropriate $1 million of the City Pure Waters District's fund balance and cash balance to fund this project.
Second.
Okay, amendment moved by Legislator Haney, seconded by Legislator Hyder. Is there any discussion regarding this proposed amendment?
I would only note, Legislator Hyder has helped me find my notes here, that the paperwork attached to this indicates that this project will potentially increase the City Pure Waters rates by 71 cents per thousand, leading to potentially a not insignificant increase in the total billings to city district customers. And when the city district is sitting on this kind of accumulated money, I just don't see any reason for that.
Any further discussion regarding the amendment, proposed amendment? Okay, being none, we'll go to a vote on this. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Do a roll call vote.
We'll do a roll call vote, sure.
Mr. Barker? Mr. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Gazzetti?
No.
Mr. Colby? No. Mr. Haney? Yes. Mr. Hyder? Yes. Mr. Howland? 3-4, motion fails.
Okay, amendment fails. Back to the main motion. Is there any further discussion on the main motion? Legislator Haney.
Mr. Chairman, because I see no reason for doing the borrowing, I'll be voting against the proposal.
Okay. Legislator Colby.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I noticed one of the statements in the referral, and I noticed it in the next coming ones. Portion of this project might become eligible for financing through New York State Water Control Relief Fund. What is that, and what advantage would be if we do qualify? And the third question is, what's the chances of us qualifying? I assume it's a low-interest loan maybe, or is it something else? For you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, Scott Adair, the Director of Finance. Yes, that program would offer the county potentially a lower interest rate than what the county can get on its current borrowings.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, do you have an estimate how much lower it would be, and when would you find out if it qualifies?
Through the chair, it's difficult to estimate because at the time of this referral, we're not in the market to borrow, and it would depend on cash flow needs as to when we would actually have to borrow for this project. So it's rather difficult to judge what the difference in interest rate could be. And I do believe we are, and this project is eligible for that type of funding. It's a matter of whether or not we exercise the option to participate in that, and that's a decision that we'll make at the point in time when we get ready to do the financing for this particular project.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, to save me asking a question for all of them, I assume that statement's the same for all the next referrals that we're seeing with that statement in?
Through the chair, that would be correct, yes.
Legislator Beebe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up on that last questioning, to the administration, what's been your experience in the past on these revolving loan funds? Give us kind of a rough idea of what exactly the interest has been and the length of time on the loan.
Through the chair, I'll have to get back to you with that information. I don't have it in my hands right now.
That'll be fine, thank you.
I guess the follow-up to that, have we used it in the past?
Through the chair, it was years ago when we participated in this program. Yes, we have used it in the past.
Any further discussion on this main motion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? No. Okay, please note legislators Hyder, Haney, and Beebe in the negative. Motion carries. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-75, increase and improvement.
Moved by legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Howland. Is there any discussion on this motion? Legislator Haney.
I only to note, Mr. Chairman, I'll be voting for this and the remaining Pure Waters ones. And lest anybody wonder why I voted no on the first one and yes on the following, it's because of the size. These other items are of a size or are in districts that basically don't have any accumulated cash or fund balance or any meaningful accumulated cash or fund balance. So borrowing is totally appropriate in these cases.
Is there any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-77,
Moved by
increase.
legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Barker. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-79.
Moved by legislator Barker, seconded by legislator Howland. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-81, increase and
Moved by
improvement.
legislator Howland, seconded by legislator Colby. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-83, increase and
Moved by
improvement.
legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Howland. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Referral 11-85, increase and improvement of facilities in the Gates Child.
Moved by legislator Barker, seconded by legislator Colby. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carried. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There being no further business, the March 23rd, 2011 meeting of the Environment and Public Works Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting will be April 27, 2011, at 4:30 PM. Thank you.